Introduce you to James Madison today. We are also recording this, and so as soon as we get the recording going, all right, looks like the recording's going. So I will get started. James Madison, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here today. We are going to be talking about a personal marketing plan specific to mostly people that are in career transition, so professionals looking for their next step. So I would like to introduce James, and let me get this up here. Okay, I'm going to introduce James, and we're going to get started. He brought this to us, and thought it would be great to do an interview with him. So James Madison is a managing director at Conquest Recruiting, which is a division of Harvard Group International, a leading executive and professional search firm that represents Fortune 500 and startup to mid-sized companies. And he is committed to partnering with companies to identify the right talent that fits the organization's culture and will drive bottom line growth results. Prior to this position, he spent over 25 years in supply chain leadership, operations management, and customer development roles at major Fortune 500 companies. Also, before corporate America, James, thank you so much, has spent 4 years in the Army in Germany as an officer and is a veteran of Operation Desert Storm. He also grew up as an Army brat, residing in numerous locations, including Belgium, Paris, Germany, New York, and Arizona. James, you've been around a little bit.
In a little bit, yeah.
He is paramount at building relationships, problem solving, and driving continuous improvement. He believes when you pursue your purpose with passion, you will never work a day in your life. Please help me welcome James Madison to the call today. Hi.
I've seen your daily video, so it's nice to talk to you kind of live here today.
Right. I'm so glad you're here. So we're going to talk about this personal marketing plan. And at the end of this call, we will also post a link so people can get the template and get the idea of what we're talking about. So first of all, to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then also how you got into this industry, because it was a shift for you. So tell us that.
Yeah, so I spent, like you said, 25 years in big CPG companies, Colgate, Palmolive, and Henkel, in supply chain kind of executive roles. And about 2 years ago, I worked for Henkel here in the Valley that moved to Connecticut. So we made that relocation for 2 years, my wife and I. But our heart was always in the Valley. Our family's all on the West Coast. So back in August of last year, we made a decision to come back to Arizona, where we still had a home. We'd actually been secretly vacationing back at home the whole time we were there. So this was always where we wanted to be. And also it was a nice opportunity for me to think about wanting to stay in the Valley and do something different. And so what I did during that period, I took some time off, and there's a book I found called What Color Is Your Parachute by Richard Bowles. And so I kind of had some time and went through there to do some self-discovery. And one of the things I discovered is that, you know, my purpose in life and passion has always been to help people grow, whether it was at work, in fitness as an instructor, in my faith as a leader, just in anything. That was one of the common things I kind of learned. And so when I started to think about what I want to do and not work a day in my life, years ago, a seed had been planted with me with a friend of mine who was an executive recruiter. And I loved the work that he did for us. And I told him 15 years ago, when I retire from doing what I have to do to make money, to do what I really want to do, I'm going to do that job. And so I found myself in a place where I could now take advantage of that. So I just decided that that's what I wanted to do. My exercise of choice is Zumba. I love to dance. And I was at Mountainside Fitness up in Scottsdale, and my instructor introduced me to a lady named Sylvia, and she was an executive recruiter at Conquest Recruiting. And so I met her that day in the gym, and she said, "Hey, we're actually hiring for managing directors." And I said, "Well, that's what I want to do." 7 days later, that's where I was working. So it was one of those, I had to figure it out. It had to be the opportunity. And so that's where I've been since October. So that's how I kind of got where I am today.
I love that. 2 parts. I mean, so much of that story is awesome, but number one, you identified something you want to do. I think so many people in career transition are thinking, I just don't know what I want to do. I hear I'll take anything all the time, which is exactly opposite of what you want to say to somebody when you're networking. So number one, you identified what you wanted to do. And number 2, networking really works.
Everywhere. Networking works everywhere.
Everywhere. I'm like, it can come from the most random spot. It can come from the middle of a Zumba class.
That's right. Always be networking, I say.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about this marketing plan. How did it get created? And how do we use it? Like, what's the purpose?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago in 2015, my job at Colgate, which was Hill's Pet Nutrition here in the Valley, was restructured. So I found myself after 21 years having to look for a job, which I hadn't done in a long time. Had no resume, didn't know what LinkedIn was. And so my career coach, Karen Somm at Lee Heck Harrison, this was one of the tools that she provided. And I really gravitated to this tool because it really helps you organize and focus on what you want to do going forward. I mean, I probably send this example to 1 or 2 people every week that I talk to in my job today, because I get a lot of calls from people looking for jobs. And I always tell them the resume talks about what you did in the past, and the marketing plan talks about what you want to do in the future. The benefit is it allows people to be able to help you because they know what you want to actually do. The biggest thing I see is people say, I'll do anything, I'll do whatever, I'll take whatever. That doesn't work. When it comes to search, it's got to be very intentional and purposeful and focused. And that's what I love about the marketing plan. It lets you think through who you want to be and use it to network.
Oh, it's so good. I absolutely love it. I love that it gives you a purpose. And I know a lot of people sitting at home right now that are job searching just feel confused and frustrated and not sure what to do. So this gives you a purpose, actions that you can take every day because you're utilizing this for your job search.
Exactly. The other thing about it is it's not just what's on the paper, it's the work that you do behind it to come up with what you write. That discovery work really helps you go through yourself. When I went through the what color is your parachute, it takes you through what kind of people do you like to work around? What kind of physical environment? What are your competencies? What are your knowledge? Where do you want to work? How much money do you make? And what's your purpose in life? So it has you do this assessment, and really that's a big piece of what I was able to really fill this out. And then you get online and do research about specific companies in your area and specific jobs and understand the pay and where they are to allow you to, again, 2 questions when I use this with people that I always ask is, this is what I want to do. This is who I am. What advice do you have for me? And everybody likes to give you advice. Everybody feels like a consultant, right? So people won't hesitate. And now they know what you want to do. And then I'd say, who do you know at these target companies that you could introduce me to?
Totally. So a couple of really great things I just want to reiterate. My favorite words in the whole world when it comes to this kind of thing, networking, who do you know? I learned those words from Dave Sherman, the networking guy in Phoenix 11 years ago. And it is exactly how I made this business happen. Who do you know? I say it all the time. So that's fantastic. All right, let's dive into some of the components, the down and dirty of this marketing plan. Professional objective. Yep. What is that, and where do we put it on here?
So that's communicating to someone, what do you actually want to do? Like, what is your objective? What is the thing that you're seeking? Many times people say, I'm looking for a job, and you say, what do you want to do? And they'll say, I'll do anything. It's not specific enough. And mine talks about supply chain and operations and leadership, P&L responsibility. It talks about very specific things so people have a very clear picture of what it is you want to do.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, this is not the resume. So the resume, you are doing some type of summary possibly at the top. This is not the resume. This is a very clear objective on what you want to do, correct?
Absolutely. What success looks like for you. Yep.
Good. Then you have something on here called a positioning statement. Tell us about that.
So this is, so you've said, here's what I want to do, but why are you even qualified to do that work? So this is how you're positioning yourself, where you're letting people know real briefly what you've done and why you qualified for the objective that you're going after. You know, mine talks about being a senior accomplished supply chain executive with Fortune 500 experience. It's just a little elevator speech on why you're qualified to meet that objective, so people understand what you want to do and why you can do that.
Yes, absolutely. And I see on yours, I have an example I'm looking at, and just to reiterate, we will post the sample out later so people can see the template. You had also put some competencies under your positioning statement. So tell me about that part.
Yeah, well, I had to think through, like, what are my competencies, my transferable skills that, again, people could see that, because this is a marketing, so this is advertising. How are you advertising yourself? I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a relationship builder. I'm an influence and negotiator. I like to develop teams. So you want to highlight those things about you so that people could think about what are the types of roles where those competencies could be best utilized.
Yeah, so good. I always think, you know, I know you're an advocate for different types of assessments, as am I. Yep. We have, Career Connectors has a free one called the DISC that people can get on and use. And so if you pull the DISC, and it's 24 pages of awesome stuff about yourself, you can pull words out of that DISC and put it right onto competencies. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And those are the things that people would expect to see when you show up at the job. because those are you. And I've done the disc many times. I love that, that assessment.
One of the words that comes out of the disc for people that are of a certain style often is creative problem solver. And I always think that is those are three great words, because you wouldn't necessarily put those two together typically. And that came right out of a disc assessment.
So that's exactly the type of thing you can highlight for yourself.
Awesome. Okay. Target market. So you're asking people, put a target market in here. What does that mean?
Well, again, it has to be very focused. Where do you physically want to live? Like, what are the markets you want to live in? Many times people want to stay in the Valley because of the beautiful weather and all the benefits. Then don't look on jobs that are in Chicago. Don't look for jobs that are in New York. If you want to stay in the Valley, then you have to focus your research. So you have to tell people, here's what I want to do. Here's what I've done. Here are my competencies, and here's where I want to actually search. These are the boundaries of the areas. So if you introduce me to somebody or give me advice, give it based on where I want to physically end up.
Yeah, and if you love the sunshine like we do, why try to get a job where you're going to be miserable if it's raining or all the time, or if it's snowing and that's just us. Some people love the four seasons. So why would you target a job in Arizona if you love the four seasons? So making it very specific, actually, it's very opposite. It's actually widens your market, because people want people that are specific about what they're looking for.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so then next we have types of industries. And so tell us about that.
Yeah, that just really helps, again, people know as they're thinking about who do they know, what are the industries where you want to focus. You want to be in the automotive industry. You want to be in the manufacturing industry. You want to be in the retail industry. So it's just another narrowing filter to allow people to think about who they know in areas that they may have contacts.
Yeah, and on yours, I see one of the things I love is you had in the template, you have Fortune 500, but open to large or mid-sized companies. What this says to me is, I'm not going to introduce you to people that run small businesses, because that's not where you're going to thrive. You're going to thrive in a mid to large size company. So as I'm thinking about who are my contacts in mid to large size companies, I'm going to be able to give you those recommendations.
The benefit of this whole thing is helping steer the thought process of your contact on how they can help you.
Absolutely. Good. I love that. I love that part. Okay. Culture. Talk a little bit about culture. You had put organizational culture on here.
Yeah. We've heard a lot about culture in these last 10 weeks in the pandemic, and we've seen who companies truly are based on how they're handling this situation. I saw something on one of the webinars I was on that says culture trumps organizational excellence and strategy all day long. Yes. So it's really about the culture of the company, because we want to be somewhere we feel valued, where we can contribute at our highest and are really valued as employees. So understanding what type of culture you even work in best is important. It's not that they're good or bad, but it's all about job fit. So being able to communicate, this is the type of culture I want to be in, once again, helps their contacts say, oh, I know a company that has that culture.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because so many of us have always said, I want to work at home, but I think there's going to come out of this, people are like, I'm never working at home again.
That's right. This is only good as if it's an exception, not every day.
Okay, and then the last piece of the template has a target list. Yep. Why would I put a target list of companies on here?
Look, this is one of the most effective things here, because it's so specific. You've already done your research. You've looked at the companies that have the roles, that can use your competencies, that pay what you're looking for. You create a list of 20 to 50 companies that you can then say, who do you know in these companies to introduce me to? And whenever I use this, I always had a target of 2 people. I wanted 2 names of people that my contact would give me in these companies, because then what I did from there is how I use this tool is I used LinkedIn and I penetrated that organization to find people around the roles I was looking for. And my ultimate objective, the score, was to get someone to take my information to the hiring manager. And I found jobs that were never posted. I found people that said that you don't want this job because it's not a fit for you. I got so much information by taking this tool and using it through LinkedIn to meet people.
Absolutely. And I think that says the importance of something like this, because to go back to something else you said, I'm not asking for a job. You said, I'm asking for advice. People love to give advice. And so when someone comes to me and says, hey, Jessica, do you know somebody at Kellogg Company? Because that's was on your list. So Kellogg Company. And I would be like, I'm not sure, but let me go look on LinkedIn and see who I'm connected to. And I'd happy to make that recommendation. But if
Exactly.
they came to me and said, I'm looking for a job, what do you, I'm like, I don't know. You know, so you're going to get less answers if you're vague, and you're going to get more answers if you're specific.
Yep. This always continues the conversation and allows people to be successful in helping you. And the way I would use this, so once I put this together, every day I had a goal. I was at one time looking at Nike, right? And I wanted to do supply chain at Nike. So I'd get up early in the morning and I would I'd look on LinkedIn for senior vice president supply chain at Nike, pull up 10 names. I would cut and paste some portion of this marketing plan into an email to somebody and say, this is me, here's what I'm looking for. We already had a connection because it was supply chain. I'd love to have a conversation or share with you more. I never sent anybody a resume until we were talking about a job, but I was always sharing the marketing plan to let them know what I was looking for. And again, who do you know? And I was 50% response easily. People would either pass me on to other people, give me names of contacts. And then when they gave me the next person, I'd say, hey, Joe, John referred me to you. And he just continued to follow that network.
Awesome. I had somebody come in and show me a version of this. It's called the networking brief one day. And
Yes.
It was the first I had learned about this, I don't know, 6 months ago or so. And I said, hey, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for. And he goes, well, do you mind if I pull out my networking brief? And I'm like, sure, I don't even know what that is. So he pulled it out and he showed me, and I was just like, wow, this makes it so easy for me to help you. And so he had some companies listed there, and I had connections right away and was able to make introductions. It was so simple. He went and did the hard work, and now it was so easy for me to help him.
So easy for people to help people that know what they want to do.
Yes. Okay. Those are the components. Let's talk about format. What format is appropriate, and you know, page font size, that kind of stuff. Does it matter?
I don't know if it matters, but what I was given here was a 2-page. It's 12. I think this is called the Calibre body. That's what I used. Again, I only have probably about 20 target list companies. You want to have 20 to 50. You want to have as many as you can to cast a wide net for your target companies.
Oh, that's great. And then how do I present it and how do I use it? Who would receive this?
Typically what I would do is when I'd go do my search for people, again, this is very targeted. So pick a company for that day, start looking for people in the organization that you can connect with. And then I had a standard LinkedIn little message that was a cut and paste, change the name, send it to people. And if they had an email, I would send them the whole thing. And if they didn't, I would just send them a part, and it was just to further the conversation.
That is fantastic. James, thank you so much for going through this. We will post this video as well as the template online so people can utilize it later. And then if someone would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
Just through my email, jmadison720@gmail.com.
Awesome. And you are also very active on LinkedIn.
Yes.
You're James Madison for what is the company that you're listed with?
Conquest Recruiting.
There you go. So you can also find him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, James. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jessica.